Hi guys, welcome back to my new channel. Today I'm going to be doing a bit more of an informational video. I've got my sort of top 10 tips on weaning your baby, and I've also got my top 10 tips on continuing good weaning habits with your toddler. So I thought I'd put them together so that it's sort of like you wouldn't miss things that you'd maybe want to start implementing as early as you can. I will go through some of the basics though to begin with, just in case it's your first ever time sort of doing any research about weaning your baby. So just to begin with, just a little bit about weaning. You can typically start sort of between 4 to 6 months with your baby. 6 months is what's recommended, but if you feel like your baby is ready earlier, you might have a particularly large baby like I did. Mine were more like 5 months rather than 6. Just be sort of extra careful if you start even younger to make sure things are like super pureed down, and maybe like dilute stuff with their current sort of either formula or breast milk. So yeah, just be a little bit more careful. Some cues that your baby's actually ready to be weaned is they're not sleeping as well as what I noticed first. So they were having shorter naps, they were getting up more during the night for nighttime feeds, they were grumpier by the time they were due a feed, they were really interested in when I was eating. So I remember sitting with Jackson on my knee and I was eating a packet of crisps and he was just like mesmerised. Another thing is when they're ready, you'll also know that you want them to be able to sit up. Like they might not be able to sit up on their own properly, just playing, but if they can sit up supported, like they're not slumped over when they're in the high chair or anything. They've got really good head control, so they can swallow properly. Like you're confident that they're sitting up properly. I actually start off weaning them in a smaller seat to a high chair, so I've got one of those sort of bumbo style, like mamas and papas seats. I'll try and insert a picture if I can. So I start off with that because I feel like it's like just a little bit smaller, closer support to begin with, and then I move on to high chair. But yeah, that's how I would kind of say you'd know to start. Some good foods to begin with would be, for me personally, I started with baby rice with both of them and mashed banana. So things like baby rice, baby porridge, banana, things like that is like your very first tastes. Okay, so tip number 1 for babies would be, I think I've got to make this one number 1 because it is so vital, it's so important to be aware of, and that is the foods that you've got to watch out for, like allergic reactions for. There's certain foods as well that you might, like you should be waiting until they're maybe a certain age to try, so like a year and up. I'm going to try and insert a list if I can that I put together. But basically, you want to kind of be careful in the early days of certain things, like even just cow's milk intolerance. You want to be careful of things like eggs. You don't want to give your baby things like citrus fruits and stuff until they're over a year old. There's like a big old list. But what I do to deal with this is I just sort of give them one new meal for every sort of few days. So I maybe don't wait as long as a week. Like some books and things say wait a whole week and before you introduce something else. But I maybe give it a few days. Because otherwise I feel like the weaning process is really slow. So I would maybe say if I've gave Jackson a taste of strawberries for the first time, I maybe won't give him any other new food for 2-3 days until I see how he's reacted to that. It's just better to be safe than sorry, isn't it? It's just one of those things that if your baby did react, at least you'd know what exactly they'd reacted to. Okay, so tip number 2 is just to make sort of finger foods easier for your baby to hold. So I did a mixture of sort of the typical like purees, and I also did some of the baby-led weaning, giving them like finger foods for them to try to eat themselves. And there's certain things you can do, like leave skins on certain fruits, like half of the skin, so they've got something to grab that's not slippy. A really good example of that would be a banana. Just like cut off like the top half of the skin, let them nibble on it. Some other things would be if you sort of try to chop up foods with some form of texture. So like, don't just give them things that are sort of smooth on all sides. So like, even if I was given sort of like little cubes of like steamed vegetables or something, you would want to, I would always put like maybe like a little triangle cut out in one bit, or I would do like a little wave or something on one side, so that they've got sort of like texture to get their little fingers around. It just makes it so much easier for them to hold and manage to eat slippy food, and they don't get annoyed constantly dropping their food. Tip number 3 is if you've got a steamer or one of those like steamer slash blenders, is to try to steam your vegetables and your fruit, whatever it is, try to steam rather than boil, because that sort of maintains the nutrients a lot better, so your child will get a lot more nutrients out of their food if you do steaming rather than boiling. Number 4, you don't have to go to the effort of steaming and pureeing every single meal time. Just when you do it in a big batch, and then you can store it in the fridge or the freezer. You get these little storage pots for babies. Loads of different brands have them. I've got the little Tommy Tippy ones. You can store those in the freezer and then just take them out and defrost them as you need them. It saves you so much time and effort. 5 would be to always have something super easy and quick on hand that takes 0 preparation. So for me, things like bananas, avocados, mangoes, things like that are lifesavers. Bananas especially, that was the one I always had, because if you need something really quick, or something to bulk up a meal or something, you feel like your child's ready to eat more, it's so easy to just mash a banana and they can just have that. It's not like you've got to, that's one of those foods that you don't have to prep, you don't have to steam it, you don't have to boil it, you don't have to puree it, you can literally just mash it up. Same with the avocado, they can have them as finger foods as well, obviously. So always have them in. They will save you. Number 6 is to not judge having those sort of pre-made baby meals, baby jars, pouches, because one, they're really super handy. So if you're out and about, having those pouches, for example, is really good. You don't have to worry about always being restricted to having to be home at your baby's meal times. They can eat on the go. The baby jars and things, I always like to have in, again, an emergency. I've got to give them something quick, especially with 2 kids. I end up having some of these like moments sometimes where maybe my eldest is a bit too grumpy to give me the time to prepare something for my youngest. So having things in like these can actually really help you. But one of the reasons why I really like it is because it gives you the chance to give your baby something that you don't like yourself. So for example, Cameron and I, we both hate cauliflower cheese. We really don't like it. But it's one of those good sort of first baby weaning meals. So I don't want to sort of stop my children trying new foods that I don't make just because I don't like them. So yeah, it's handy for quickness, handy for emergencies, and handy for letting them get new tastes that you wouldn't normally buy in the house. Tip number 7, I think we're on, is don't let your baby get too grumpy or upset before their meals. So try to be on top of things. Don't wait until your baby's already totally hangry to begin. They're going to be much more sort of forthcoming and cooperative if you have them in a good mood at the table. They'll be less likely to sort of get annoyed and spit out their foods and things. So just try to be on top of the situation and get them in the chair in a happy mood so they're ready to enjoy their food. Even in the early days, you can combine foods. So say your baby's really struggling with one of the sort of harsher tastes like broccoli or spinach, you can add in some of the sort of sweeter tasting things to sort of get them used to it and just gradually decrease how much of the sweet thing is in that meal until they get used to it. So for example, sweet potato, carrots, stuff like that, you know, sweeter tasting veg, that's really good to combine in. Tip number 9, almost there. is about how to know when to start reducing your baby's milk. So for me personally, I found that that sort of stage where your baby's at, you know, like they're hitting their 3 meals a day, they're eating really well and things, but they're maybe starting to be like a little bit less interested in typically the bottle of milk in the middle of the day. So it's usually sort of like that mid-afternoon bottle's the first one to go. Because they're usually still quite thirsty when they wake up in the morning, love having their either their bottle or breast milk, whichever you're still doing, and then they all love the one at night. So I often find that one in the middle of the day is the first one and easiest one to let go of. Try not to worry about too much any earlier than that point, because your baby has that lovely sort of like chubby stage between when they start weaning and when they start crawling and walking. And that's just them sort of bulking themselves up, ready for all these physical achievements they're about to make. So don't worry about it. But yeah, you kind of want, what I do is I don't do anything suddenly with them. So I would start maybe reducing how much milk was in that bottle. So if you're still breastfeeding, maybe try to make the one of the day so you can see how much they're having. Try to make that one like a pumped bottle if you can, and just start reducing how many ounces. So like maybe try to take an ounce down each day and see how they react. If they seem really hungry and upset, they're maybe not ready for that, or they maybe need their other meals to be a little bit bigger. They may be ready for the meal before that to be a little bit bigger. The other thing you can do is also replace that bottle with something. So offer them a drink of water, and if they need it, a small snack. If you're really trying to replace that milk, offer them something else if they seem grouchy. But generally, by the time they're on 3 full meals, they should be full enough that you can start getting rid of a bottle. This is a big one. So just for sort of background, my first baby, my daughter Bella, she was incredibly easy in the sort of early days to wean. She loved everything she tried. She like rarely didn't like anything. So it was a bit of a shock when my second baby was a complete fusspot, like what I was apparently. And he would just like scrunch up his face at everything you gave him, even if it was something really sweet and nice. He just didn't like anything. He's really, really adverse to change. So what my sort of point here is not to let that sway you. Just keep trying them with the same things over and over again, even if they're constantly spitting it back out at you. Eventually they will start to like it. It's just new for them. They all react differently. Don't think, oh, my baby doesn't like anything, so I can't give them that again because they don't like that. Or, oh, I've got to give them something else because they won't eat that, so they'll be hungry. Especially to begin with, your baby will have everything they need from their milk. So this is just to help them learn to taste. With Jackson, all those things that he scrunched his face up for the first like 2 months for, he's now eating, and he's eating them really happily. So you've just got to stick in there, not give up. It's the same with the fruit and the vegetables. Like the second you stop offering that to them, that's when you sort of lose the battle, because even though you think they never ever take it, if it's constantly on their plate forever, they're always watching you eat it, you know, like one day they'll just think, oh, I fancy a taste of that, and that might be the day that they suddenly like that food. So even though you feel like you're wasting time, effort, and money giving them these foods, you've just got to do it anyway, and eventually it will pay off, I promise. Toddlers. This is also sort of relevant to babies, just to implement it as early as you can, basically. So tip number 1, try to feed them as many things as you can that you're likely to feed them as they grow up. So think about things that you and your partner maybe eat already. For example, you know, like the staple meals in your house. What do you cook all the time? Think, how can I make that sort of baby appropriate now? What I do a lot of the time is I will make sort of like in one pot, I'll have like say caramelized food, and then in a little one next to it, I will have the exact same ingredients, but I won't add salt or sugar or like sort of any sort of really spicy things to it, and just make the same thing, or like a deconstructed version. So for example, when we have things like fajitas, we will still give Bella like a little well, in the early days she eats it actually like a little bit spicy now, but in the early days we would give her like a little pile of like just like little pieces of chicken, give her like a little bit of cheese, we give her like a little bit of like shredded up tortilla wrap, we give like a little bit of like chopped up peppers and things like that, and it was just like the same thing, maybe like a little dip, like a little bit of like mayo, sour cream, cream cheese, something on the side. And you can do that, you can just give them the same ingredients but just without the spice, definitely no salt and sugar. You've got to watch, like they're poor little kidneys, they can't take stuff like that. So just try to make the same thing, and eventually you'll just be making one pot for the family. So tip number 2 is to eat at the table with your baby or toddler. So try to have like the meal as a family together, whoever's at home. So like if it's just me, like just now, I'll sit here with the 2 children and we'll all eat at the same time. This is really good because especially if you're doing the last tip where you're trying to get your baby to eat the same foods that you eat, then it means that they are sort of watching you eat that food. So that for one hand sort of encourages them to do it. Also things like eating with cutlery, they'll watch how you use spoons, forks, knives. So like they learn best by watching you. Table manners, they'll just learn things like that. Little things like no one leaves the table until everyone's finished. You know, it's like things like that you instill at a young age that they'll grow up with, and they'll be nice, polite, well, table-mannered children. Next tip is to try to sort of, as a way of encouraging the fruits and veg, give them, even if you're still busy cooking, as a way of sort of occupying your toddler at the time, give them a fruit or veg as a snack to pick away, because they'll already be hungry, it's supper time or lunchtime, and they'll have like the appetite for it. And if that's the only thing they're given at first, as a little snack to keep them busy, then they're more likely to pick at it. The other thing that I would do is, if you've made them a meal, try to put the fruit and veg of that meal on the top of it, so that it's the first thing you see, bright, colourful, they're more likely to go for it. Over time, they will start going for their veg first. Bella does, and I'm so pleased. But the other thing that I would say, if you really do struggle and they won't sort of take fruit or veg by sight, still keep doing that anyway. But if you find they're not eating it, but you still want to get into their diet, you're worried, hide things in the sauces that you make, covering up like the food with sauce, or offering them a dip. So Bella really enjoys sort of like dipping her foods into some kind of like little lump of sauce that I'll put on her plate. So just doing that, she finds it funny, so she's more likely to do it. Or make them a smoothie. Kids absolutely love smoothies, so just put a bunch of fruit into the blender, and they'll enjoy helping you as well if you want to get them involved, putting things in, and then you can tell them what food's going into their smoothie and stuff as well, and then when they taste it they'll be like, oh wow, that tastes really nice. Have a selection on their plate with always at least one of the things, something you know they like. So if you're trying them with something new, try to make sure they've also got something that's a staple that they always eat, because otherwise if they turn their nose up at the new thing, they'll think, oh, like I don't eat that, but mummy will give me something else. So if you do that, then you know at least they've got something in their bellies. They're not going to starve having maybe like a little bit less, one portion, one meal, are they? So if you just do that and not give them something else, then they'll learn sort of like, what's on my plate is what I've got. So if I'm hungry, I better like eat what I have. Like, I don't mean that in like a horrible way. You know, obviously if you feel like your child really needs something that day, then just give them something else. But it's just for the most part, so they don't get into that habit of thinking, you know, like, oh, it's okay, like I can just say no to whatever I want because I'll get something else anyway. Next tip is to not put pressure on them. No, like whether that's good or bad pressure. So toddlers are notoriously sensitive, grumpy, unpredictable little people, and basically if you make a fuss over something, they're probably going to as well. So even if you are making like a big deal, like, oh wow, like eat this, isn't this tasty, this is so nice and stuff, then they might one day really appreciate that sort of attention and really enjoy it and like eat it and be like, oh yeah. But the next day they might be in one of those toddler moods and they'll be like, what's mummy going to react like if I don't do this? Like they'll think about it more and they will be more likely to not eat it, go no, or like throw it on the floor or something. So basically, we just try to make their food like, just make meal times not a big deal. It's just the normal, like it's nothing special. Try to act like you're not actually fussed if they eat their meal or they don't. Because that's when they'll try to get reaction out of you all the time. They'll want the attention of you being like, oh no, like please eat this, or one more bite. They'll want that attention. So just watch out the corner of your eye. Of course you are actually bothered, but just try to not let them know that. Just a little time saver one. Just basically every time I cook a meal for Bella and like Cameron and myself, I always have like a portion for me, portion for Cameron, and I'll make 2 portions for Bella. So that way it just saves me a bit of time, because again, toddlers aren't very patient. It makes like every second meal a little bit easier, if you know what I mean. So obviously foods that are okay to reheat, or if not, foods that are okay to eat again cold. Next tip is to limit the sort of snacking between meals. A lot of people have sort of very dedicated snack times, make a big deal out of snack time, give them lots to snack on. We don't really do that, and as much as kids need frequent sort of meals and snacks and nutrition and things, we will maybe give Bella between meals like a little bit of fruit or something, you know, like she can have a little something. We don't do no snacks, but we just don't give her anything that's filling between those meals, because we find that she has such a better appetite and she will devour her meal. She'll eat all of her meal. Like she's just much happier as well. Like she doesn't look for snacks all day. She doesn't constantly ask us for snacks, nag us for snacks. She's really satisfied with her big full meals. And she can have like, you know, like little treats. It's just that if you want to encourage your baby to be more likely to eat their food at meal times, try to not have them full up before they're even down for their meal. So the next tip is, don't just wait until meal times to encourage their eating. You can do so much throughout the day to encourage how they sort of feel about food. You know, like create that good relationship with food, that they're excited about it, they like their fruit and veg. You can do so many things. You can pick with the sort of shows that they watch on telly. So if we put on shows like Little Baby Bum, Coco Melon, things like that, you know, you can put on the songs that are about food, and they will have things all about sort of loving their fruit and their veg, and it like teaches them the names and things. That's another thing, is that if they learn the names of the food, they're going to be more excited about it. So Bella was not a cheese girl at all, didn't really care for cheese. As soon as she learned the word cheese, she was like, cheese, 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 and then she's more excited to eat it, because I'll be like, Bella, that's cheese, and she's like, I know that. So she gets excited and she eats it. So things like that. So like try to teach them words. Like when you put the plate down in front of them, you can say, this food's that. You've got some I don't know, you've got some Weetabix, you've got some strawberries, you've got some yogurt. Teach them what they're eating, and that goes for outside of meal times as well. So you can get them sort of plastic or wooden toy food that you can have sort of like little role play games together, pretend you've got a little restaurant or cafe. You can pretend to feed their cuddly toys. You can, like sing nursery rhymes about it, get them interested in things like gardening, like where food comes from. You can sort of do baking with them, like teach them sort of like what goes into food, like help them learn how to crack an egg and things like that, you know, just like get them really involved, get them to help you with your cooking. So at a safe distance, obviously, from heat. So I'll maybe like pick Bella up and have her like help me sort of do some stirring or something. Like let them watch you cooking. Like I quite like to have Bella sitting whilst I cook, like rather than just take her through when the food's ready, so that she sees the process, and we can speak about it, sing songs and whatever. Just make the whole thing exciting. Last thing I'm going to say about toddlers and like little babies as well, this one, is to make the clean up time at the end fun if you can. So Jackson absolutely hates having his face wiped, like can't stand it, but all it takes is just to, before you start wiping him, take your little baby wipe and start tickling his ears, tickle his chin, make him think it's just fun. You're like, mummy's just tickling me. Then he doesn't mind at all, won't complain once about getting sort of cleaned up. With toddlers, they're so smart. If they know that they hate, like at the end of the meal, they'll start sort of playing up. They'll be like, oh no, mummy's gonna wipe my face and it's gonna be annoying. So if you can make that time fun. So with Bella, I give her a task to do. I'll give her a wipe so she cleans her surface while I clean her. We'll sing the cleanup song that's on like Cocomelon and things, or we play it on Alexa. We'll do things like that. Just try to make everything fun, because as sensitive as toddlers are, they're also hilarious little people. So if you can just make everything a game and fun, they will just love it. So that's all my tips for today. Sorry it was such a long one. I just have so much to say about this. I will be doing some more sort of like follow-up videos on it, maybe some what my baby and toddler eat in a day or in a week even. I might do some specific, like following some like actual like recipe books or something. Yeah, so basically if you'd like to see more about this, please do remember to subscribe. This is a new channel, so I would really appreciate it. And also if you enjoyed the video, please give me a like as well. I just wanted to say, if there's anything that you feel like I've not covered today, or there's something you'd like me to elaborate on further, like basically no matter how simple the question, please feel free to ask me. I would love to help. It's like what I'm here for. So you can always ask me anything you want in the comments below, or you can send me a private message if you prefer on my Instagram. It's @mummystables. But yeah, just feel free to ask. I would absolutely just love to sort of be able to help other mums in situations that I've been in. So, but thank you so much for watching. Hope you're having a wonderful day, and bye for now.